Hare Om Namo Narayana नारायण नारायण हरि 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 ओम नमो नारायण ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि तेरे लीला प्रभु है न्यारी न्यारी हरि हरि तेरे लीला प्रभु है न्यारी न्यारी हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि 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 ओम नमो नारायण ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि 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 ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय 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 ॐ नमो Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva 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 Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva 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 Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva 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 Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva 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 Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva 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 Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva 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 Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari, He Nath Narayana Vasudeva, He Nath Narayana Vasudeva, He Nath Narayana Vasudeva. Asato ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Everyone together. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Welcome to satsang, and especially welcome on such a beautifully auspicious day of Ganesh Chaturthi. It's the day in which we say that Lord Ganesh came. Talk about the day he took birth, but we don't so much think about divine manifestations as taking birth so much as they manifest, they appear, they arrive for us. And Lord Ganeshji is, I don't know whether if you took a poll or not, Ganeshji would emerge as the most popular of the divine manifestations, but my instinct is he probably would. There's a sense that people have about Lord Ganesh as Apana. He's the God in the family, and everybody feels very, very close to him and so much love for him. And he's so much, and I don't want to take the whole time tonight talking about it. On the other hand, it's such a beautiful and auspicious topic. But he's seen as the God who removes obstacles. So when people are facing obstacles in their life, they pray to Lord Ganesh, or if there's going to be a new undertaking, a new wedding, a new business, a new home, whatever it may be, we always pray to Lord Ganesh. And before we do any puja, in fact, we pray to Lord Ganesh that even our puja, remove the obstacles of that. And it's beautiful, and it's so interesting because there's external obstacles. I had a picnic planned, it rained. I had my money in the stock market crashed. I had a home, the home caught fire. I mean, there are very, very tangible, objective, external obstacles. Driving my car down the road, there's a boulder in the middle of the road, there's been an avalanche, cannot go further. Okay, obstacle. And when most people think about Ganeshji, they think about him as the remover of those sorts of obstacles, and a matter of, make this job, make this undertaking, make this marriage, make this journey be obstacle-free, meaning don't send anything from outside No stock market crashes, please. No homes that burn down, please. No illnesses, no death, no failure, no difficulties. That's how most people think of the obstacles. Most people go to Lord Ganesh to remove those sorts of obstacles. And yet, if you really look at our lives, what we realize is that the stuff that really holds us back, in most cases, comes from inside, not outside. Yes, if you had all your money in the stock market and the stock market crashed, it's an objective obstacle, bad situation. Your house burns down, bad situation. But that's not what most of us face on a day-to-day basis. It's not what most of us are being held back by. And if we really look, and if we went around the room, and I won't do it, don't worry. I don't call on people without having them raise their hands first. But if we did, if we went around and I made everybody say what their greatest obstacle is, 99 times out of 100, it's going to be an obstacle of how I see something, how I respond to something, rather than the thing itself. That doesn't make us wrong. It doesn't mean that we're a problem. People see things in different ways, like things in different ways. But when you realize that the problem is internal rather than external, it changes our prayer. The vast majority of us are held back by the obstacle of our own egos. The vast majority of us are held back by our own visions of how things should be. So if you say, okay, what's your obstacle? Oh, my obstacle is that my boss won't give me a raise or a promotion, and I really should be the one in that corner office. I should be the one who's made vice president. Or my obstacle is that this guy doesn't love me, or this lady doesn't love me, and I'm the one they should choose. Or my obstacle is I want to achieve something, I'm not able to achieve it. Meaning, in all of these cases, I've got a vision of how I think things should be. I should be the one with the nice office and the high post. I should be the one who gets chosen. I should be the one everybody's nice to and respectful of. And because I'm a good person, why not be nice to me, right? I'm nice to people. You should be nice back to me. So I have this expectation. And then when it doesn't happen, I get upset. But the obstacle is not the people outside. The obstacle is my attachment to how it should be. And it's a subtle difference. And you could say, well, objectively, shouldn't people be nice? Of course they should. But that's not the question. We're not in life living based only on what an ideal world should be. We're living in what is our real world. Sure, in an ideal world, everybody would see each other as self. There'd be no greed. We would all take exactly as much as we need. We wouldn't take anything that belongs to anyone else. We wouldn't harm another. But that's not, sadly, the world that we live in today. Sadly, the world that we live in has got a lot of those things. And it's important for us as we navigate our lives to navigate from a place of real rather than ideal. I hold out the ideal, work toward it, but I'm aware that not everybody's going to do what I want. And interestingly, the external world is not my obstacle. The internal world is my obstacle, because it's my internal world that says external should be a certain way. you should behave the way I want, speak the way I want, act the way I want. So when we pray to Lord Ganesh today, it's a beautiful opportunity. Instead of just saying, my dear Lord Ganeshji, please, please remove that guy who sits next to me in class and, pokes me, or remove my colleague who steals my work, or remove my boss who hates me. Rather than that, it's, oh Lord Ganesh, remove within me that which is creating an obstacle to me living in peace, living in joy, despite whatever is going on around me. Oh Lord Ganesh, remove the ignorance in me that makes me think that my life even is about these things. That actually what matters is who's got the corner office. That what matters is who's nice to whom in the office. Remove those obstacles that keep me from seeing the truth of who I am, the truth of what life is really about. The greatest obstacle, the single greatest obstacle that any of us faces, is the voice in our own heads that says something should be different. You should be different. You should look different. You should be smarter, funnier, more productive, taller, thinner, fairer, younger. Voice that says what the outside world should be. That's the single greatest obstacle, because every time that voice speaks, aside from just the nonsense of what it's saying, it's giving you an underlying message. A, that everything isn't already perfect. And so it pulls you out of the capital T truth in which everything actually is exactly as it's supposed to be. So it pulls you straight into falsehood. And it also pulls you into the belief that who you are is based on these things. And that who you are is based on what people around you are doing or saying or thinking about you. And so on this very auspicious day, love holidays, not only for those of us who subscribe to the Hindu tradition or the Sanatan Dharma or Vedic way of life, but for everybody, because regardless of whether you worship the manifestation of the divine who's being celebrated on that day, there's a message and a teaching that is so powerful for people of every religion. So regardless of whether you actually worship Lord Ganesh or not, use the auspiciousness of today to realize that your greatest obstacle is that voice in your own head that says it should be different. And do whatever you need to do to quiet that voice. The internal work, the external work, the life choices. Because it's a mix. It's a mix of how I think, but how I think also gets determined by what I do. Meaning, I make a commitment to get up in the morning and meditate. I make a commitment to live a more spiritual life, to attend spiritual talks or satsangs or prayer or whatever it may be. I make a commitment to be more spiritually focused. So it's both. It's my own internal how I'm thinking, but it's also an awareness that how I live determines how I think, just as how I think determines how I live. And it's a very auspicious day. I'm all in favor of hijacking every opportunity we have to make a change, because it's so easy to say, oh, I'll do that on Monday. I'll do that on New Year's. Well, Jan 1st is coming up. I've got another few months. I'll wait till January 1st to start it. Or at least I'll wait till Monday to start it. There's something in us that likes to start things on some very seemingly auspicious day. And so today is a very auspicious day, because Lord Ganesh is also the god of new beginnings. And so let it be a day of a new beginning, to really begin a new way of thinking, a new way of thinking about yourself, a new way of thinking about what's the obstacle in your life, and realizing you're the obstacle. Not that you're bad, again, not something to berate yourself with, but the obstacle is of my own creation, which means that I get to create the removal of the obstacle with Lord Ganeshji's blessings. We remove the obstacle. And I'm not saying it's easy, by any means it isn't. But at least it becomes the path that we know we walk on, rather than a path of removing obstacles externally. Remove the annoying neighbor, remove the annoying colleague, remove the annoying boss, get a different job, get a different colleague, get a different neighbor, get a different spouse, get different in-laws, get plastic surgery to remove the annoying parts of my body. Whatever it is, we just keep trying to remove things outside. And it's a very auspicious day to begin a new way of realizing, obstacles in my way of thinking, and to work to remove that. Is God both good and evil? God is everything, but evil arises. Evil arises out of ignorance. In the Hindu tradition, we don't speak about evil as evil, because what we believe is that the core of who we are is pure and perfect and divine. We've been created not just by the divine, but of the divine, which means that who you are is divine, is pure, is perfect, is not just good, but is capital G good. It's beautiful, perfect. But then we have ignorance. And the ignorance is that which says, I am this body. And when we say body, we don't just mean neck down. We also mean that which exists inside our skull. And that's the brain. And the brain is the medium through which we experience our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our identities. And when we identify with all of that, we start to identify with what we want, who we think we are, whether by my color, by my race, by my religion, by my socioeconomic status, by my power. We identify by things that have happened to us, that we are impacted by. So if I was abused, for example, I'm much more likely to abuse someone. Not because I'm an evil human being, but because the abuse created a sanskar in me, abuse others or abuse myself through addictions, alcoholism, whatever it may be, self-destructive tendencies. Now, none of that is evil. It's I've identified with something that's happened. It happened to my body, but I've identified it as myself, and I act on it. When I identify as a wronged party, I identify as a victim, for example, well, I'm then going to act to get back what I think you've stolen from me. So if I feel like a victim, you've stolen from me, you've lied to me, you've cheated me. Maybe I'm going to do something really horrible and kill you. Maybe something not quite as horrible and just hit you in the face. Nonetheless, they're on the spectrum of what you could call evil. Certainly killing you is evil. Hitting you might be considered evil. But again, none of it comes because I'm an evil person. It comes because I have falsely identified as an injured victim. I've identified as the one from whom you stole. I've identified as separate from you. And I've therefore acted out of that ignorance. If you look at all of that which we consider evil in the world, it all arises out of ignorance. And ignorance is an umbrella. Under the umbrella of ignorance, we get ego, we get greed, we get lust, we get delusion, we get all of that that leads us to do things that could be termed evil. But we are not evil. We are ignorant. So when we speak about God, God is not evil. We are not evil. Even people who do evil things are not evil. They are ignorant. Now, it doesn't mean that we're minimizing the horribleness of what they've done. It doesn't mean that we're minimizing the punishment that they should receive, karmic punishment as well as legal punishment. But it means that there isn't a gene that's evil. There's genes that impact our brains in different ways that make it less easy for us to connect and empathize with others, easier for me to harm others, but that's not evil. That's deficient. That's defective. Not evil. Even if you look in the scriptures at the quote-unquote evil demons. So you take, for example, the story of the Ramayana, the great epic of the Ramayana. Well, so who's the demon of the Ramayana? Ravan, right? The demon king, the evil one. Well, interestingly, he actually wasn't. He was actually a brilliant Vedic scholar. Who became a little too ignorantly attached to the form, to the power of the form, to the lust, to the greed, to the power, to the separation. To the victimness of how dare you harm my sister. To the whole story that led to the evil acts stemmed not from evil inside, but from ignorance. And so this is where it's so important for us to ensure the cultivation of gyan, the cultivation of true knowledge. That's where we emphasize the path of wisdom. Yes, being kept from evil is a separate benefit, but the path of wisdom is the path that takes us to know the truth of who we are, to experience the divine. So no, God isn't evil. And that's why wisdom is so important. Gyan is so important. Light is so important. So if you ever find yourself either on the verge of doing something that you know is evil or feels evil, or with someone who you think is going to do something that seems evil, rather than telling them what horrible people they are or telling yourself what a horrible person you are, see what you can do to bring about wisdom. See what you can do to lessen the death grip on ignorance that they're holding. And whether wisdom can begin to blossom and brew there. Before taking another of our questions from advance, I'm happy to open it up to any questions that are here, if there are any. Yes.
Sadhvi, can you say something about, maybe follows on a little bit from what you've been saying, the difference between regret and guilt? So you're talking about acts where one is trying to apply wisdom
Yes.
in the moment, but if one has been in ignorance. So I was wondering if there was a difference in motivation, and also if you could say something about how to work, particularly with a feeling like guilt, to come to something perhaps more constructive.
Okay. So the difference between regret and guilt, and also when we feel guilt especially, how do we work with that and come to a constructive way out? Well, first of all, when I think of regret, and I don't have a dictionary in front of me, but when I think of regret as actually something positive. I think of regret as the voice of my conscience that says I could have done better. I was not as awake or skillful as I could have been in that moment. And I think regret is good because it enables us. It doesn't feel good. And so if you know that you regret it every time you act a certain way, if you're conscious and awake and moving on your spiritual path, you're going to try to avoid those things that make you regretful. Like if you really love the way chocolate tastes, for example, but when you eat chocolate, you end up with a stomach ache. Eventually you may realize, well, okay, maybe just a little bit, or maybe not at all, not because it's bad, but because I'm an awake, conscious person. And what I've realized is that particular choice leads to pain for me. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with eating chocolate, but if it hurts your stomach, do it enough times and eventually you stop doing it if you're conscious and awake and you have a choice. In the same way with things that we know really are not nearly as harmless and even pleasant as eating chocolate may be, but things like hurting others. Things like being impatient. Things like lust or greed. Things like selfishness. All of that. And so much more that leads us to have regret. If it stings us enough times, and we are awakening, and we are conscious, eventually we're going to stop doing it because we know if I do that, I'm going to regret it. That regret isn't worth it. It hurts. So I actually see regret as a good thing because it's that emotional stomach ache that says, I don't want to do this again. Not worth it. Guilt, on the other hand, I don't see as beneficial. Guilt is it's over, it's done, there's nothing I can do to fix it. The initial regret has also dissipated. I may have even changed my ways entirely. But guilt is that wound that just festers inside of us and says, bad person, bad person, bad person, bad person, bad person, bad person. So guilt I don't see as serving any role. Because A, it doesn't help you, and B, it doesn't help the world, because guilt is not actually that which changes us. Guilt immobilizes us, it paralyzes us. Bad person, bad person, bad person. See, I contract. Conscious open regret of that was not my highest self. That was not my awake self. That was not my most grounded, conscious, mindful, skillful self. That's useful. But guilt just sits there literally paralyzing us. Because of course when you feel guilty, you don't really want to do anything. You just feel miserable about yourself. So how do we work with it? Well, the first piece of it is forgiveness. You have to learn to forgive yourself. You're doing the best you can. We all are. Doing the best you can. In every moment. With whatever's in your toolbox at that moment. You're doing your best. And with the 20/20 of hindsight, with a totally different toolbox, I can look back and say, that was horrible. I'm a horrible person, shouldn't have done that. But in that moment, I didn't have the tools to do any differently. The only thing I can do in this moment is start finding those tools so I don't do it again. Okay, some point in the past required patience, required love, required understanding. I didn't have it. At that moment, all I had was stress and fear, unconsciousness, self-protection. And so I acted out of that. And now I feel horrible. So the initial regret, good. There should be a little bit of a sting so that next time I'm not so quick to do it. Next time maybe I'll look a little bit longer for some more tools. But that festering guilt serves me no purpose other than let it be a catalyst. Let it be a catalyst that says, all right, there are going to be moments in the future I can't redo my past. Unfortunately, none of us can rewind life. You can't call back an arrow that's been shot from a bow or words back into your mouth. And it's sad. It would be nice if we could. You know, on a computer, we have this Control-Z, right? Undoes the very last thing you just did. Or on an Apple, maybe it's Apple-Z. And it would be great if you had that in life. I know that I'm spending too much time at my computer when I do something like spill a glass of water, and the first impulse in my mind is, oh, I'll just Control-Z that. And then a voice will come in and say, actually, you got to go get a towel and clean it up, because this is life, not a computer. But it would be great. It would be great if we had the ability to just Control-Z it and undo it. But we don't. What we do have the ability, though, is to know that situations are going to arise again. That are going to require love, require patience, require understanding. So if I didn't have the tools then, how can I make sure I have them now? If every time I get upset, I hit somebody, and every time I hit somebody, I feel horrible, well, I should be pretty sure that I'm going to get upset again. I mean, one way would be I'm never going to get upset again. That would be a fantastic, idealistic solution. A more practical solution is, chances are, until I become enlightened, which I'm working on, sure, but until I get there, things will upset me. I know that every time I've gotten upset in the past, I've hit someone. I know that hitting people is wrong. I feel horrible when I do it. Therefore, let me develop the skills to manage my own frustration, so that next time I get upset, I learn how to take a walk around the block. I learn how to breathe. I learn how to drink water. I learn how to paint or play my violin or sing kirtan or do anything other than hit someone. But I have to learn to develop those skills before I'm upset. And so guilt serves us only if we can let it be a catalyst. So if you find that you're guilty, use it as a catalyst. And of course, even though we can't rewind life, sometimes simply an acknowledgement of what you've done wrong to the person you hurt is incredible. For people who have been hurt, in a huge number of cases, all we want is for that person to say, I realize I hurt you. I'm so sorry I hurt you. If I could rewind life and undo hurting you, I would do everything in my power to rewind life and undo hurting you. But I can't. But I see you and I see your pain. And it hurts me so much. And sometimes, in many cases, simply being seen by the person who has hurt you is really what most people want. And then, of course, if there's some way to actually make amends, say, is there anything I can do? In most cases, the answer is no. And they may not accept your apology, they may not forgive you, and that's okay. Because you have to walk into that situation not bargaining. It's not, I'm going to be vulnerable, I'm going to be courageous, I'm going to apologize, and therefore you better accept my apology. No expectation. I'm doing what I need to do for me, for my guilt. They will do what they need to do for them.
So is there anything in your philosophy that sort of speaks to the Christian terms of atonement and repentance? That are very evocative.
Yeah. Atonement and repentance. So the idea that somehow we've angered God, it's not something that feels in my experience of God like an experience that I've had or that I could imagine having. My experience of God is not an experience of a God who would get mad at me and then hold a grudge against me until and unless I did X, Y, and Z. It's just not my personal felt sense experience of God. But atonement and repentance are very, very good for us. Because what they do is they hit home the sense of I was unconscious, I wasn't skillful, I acted out of ignorance. through my atonement, if my atonement says I'm going to fast for 3 days, that doesn't feel good. I mean, it's good for my body, but it's hard to do. Or my atonement says I'm going to, stay awake all night or stand on one leg in the hot sun. You can be pretty sure I'm going to think 100 times before acting unskillfully again. You can be pretty sure that I'm going to use every recourse at my disposal to make sure that I don't do something again that's going to make me have to go through this again. So I'm all in favor of it as a way of breaking through our ignorance, changing behaviors within ourselves. Think of it as your own behavior change campaign, your own behavioral therapy technique, right? One of the things that we were taught in psychology of just really basic behavioral techniques, but I loved it, and I used to do it all the time for everything, is you take a rubber band and you put it on your wrist. And every time you do what you don't want to do, whether it's something as little as bite your fingernails or crack your knuckles or twirl your hair or some habit, or say a swear word or tell a lie or smoke a cigarette, whatever it may be, you snap that rubber band and it burns, it hurts, and it creates this negative impression in the mind that identifies now profanity, smoking, hair twirling, whatever it may be, with pain. So I'm not in favor of self-flagellation, but I am in favor of strong methodology from spiritual traditions, from psychological traditions, from basic discipline and behavior traditions, to get us to do what we know we need to do. When I first started getting up early, and even before that, even in college when I just had to get to a class on time, I put my alarm clock on the other side of the room. Why? Because I knew if it's next to my bed, I'm going to turn it off. But if I've actually got to get myself out of bed and walk across the room, I'm much less likely to go back to bed. So whatever you need, use it. But don't let it tell you you're a bad person. It's not atonement because you're bad, sinner. No. It's just you've spent a lot of decades indoctrinating ignorance into yourself. And so it takes time to inculcate a new habit, a new way of being. So if every time you do that which makes you feel guilty, you create a personal atonement practice that's not something you look forward to, great. But just make sure that it doesn't have the emotional component of you are bad. Just, you were ignorant. You were unskilled. You were not living in your truth. Let it be that. Okay? Are you going to be with us here tomorrow? You're not. Okay. So then we'll take it quickly.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Just in line with what you
Yes.
talked about, the Day of Atonement is coming up. Your question, in line with your question too. In the Jewish religion, which is Yom Kippur.
Yes, of course.
And there's a few days between the New Year and the Day of Atonement, and then you feel like God is judging you.
Yes.
Throughout that whole time. I'm sort of swaying away from that because I don't. It doesn't really get explained during the ceremonies. What are your feelings about?
Okay, so I wish very, very deeply at this moment that sitting with me here was my dearly beloved mentor, friend, Rabbi Rosen, because he was the chief rabbi of couple of different countries. He's now a very, very renowned Jewish leader in Israel. But he is the one who explains everything in a way that makes so much sense on a deep heart spiritual level. And so I wish very much that he were here, because he would be able to explain to you about Yom Kippur and the Day of Atonement and this concept of judging and this concept of being judged by God in a way that at the end you'd say, oh my God, how beautiful and how blessed I am to belong to a tradition that has such a beautiful teaching. I cannot, unfortunately, channel him. So I cannot tell you what he would say. But what I can tell you, from the amount of time that I have spent with him and the number of different questions on different topics that I've heard him answer, is, and also just from my own personal experience of God, which wasn't a God by the Hindu sense of God or God by a Jewish sense of God, just God. Because when you experience God, you're not experiencing a Christian God or a Jewish God or a Hindu God or a Muslim God. When you experience, it's just God. It's not a matter of God judging you. It's a matter of a law of karma. There are things that you have done in the past year that will bear fruit in the next year. Things that you've done in previous years that will be bearing fruit in this next year. When we talk about the law of karma, by the way, they're speaking about the upcoming holidays in the Jewish tradition, in which it's believed that during this time the book of life is being written by God, and who's going to live and who's going to die and who's going to be sick and who's going to be well, and all of that gets written in this book at that time. And there's the most holy day of the year called the Day of Atonement. And so that's what they're referring to in the question. There are things you've done that will bear fruit in the next year. That if you, in the same way that if you put money into a fixed deposit a certain number of years ago that had 2020 as the year of maturity, you could know, all right, this fixed deposit's going to mature, I'm going to get this much money. Not because you're clairvoyant, but because you could see, you know, I put this money into the fixed deposit at this rate of interest. It's maturing. This is how much I'm going to get. So it's not a matter of God sitting up there deeming she's good, she's bad, he's good, he's bad. Some of it is going to be your karmic fruits. But also what you have to realize is the act of atoning makes who you are different. And what that means is you're going to act differently. If the atonement was real, you're going to be a different person, act in a different way, which means that different things will happen to you. So it's not that things are being predestined, predetermined on this day for the next year. You are co-creating your next year. If you really atone, if you really pray, if you use these high holidays to really transform who you are, you will act differently. And when you act differently, different things will happen. So it's not that God needs our atonement. And again, I'm not saying this from any sense of a Judaism expertise. It certainly may be that in the scriptures it is said that God needs your atonement. And again, if I had Rabbi Rosen here, he would explain why. But in terms of my experience, what I know, it's not that we're doing it for God. The pujas that we do here, the ceremonies we do, we're offering to God. But we're doing it for ourselves. God doesn't need our rice or our milk or our ghee or our flowers or our fruit or our prayers. We need them to purify ourselves. And the us who is purified will act differently. Puja Swamiji always says, when you bathe in Ganga, it's not that you are absolved from past sin and therefore you can go out and do it all over again. I translate that to mean that it's not like a get out of jail free card. It's only there when you have a bath in Ganga that changes you. And when it changes you, when Ganga purifies you on the inside, then you walk out a different person. And when you're a different person, then your whole karmic package changes. So use these days to atone, not because God needs it, but because you need it. Use it as a way to change yourself. So that regardless of what's written in the book, you in the next year are different. Write your own book. Write your own book this year. That pen's in your hands.